Hi, it's Corey. As a technology leader, you've got a lot of responsibilities. One of your biggest is your ability to deliver on projects. The business is relying on you to help them navigate the complex technical ecosystem and deliver working product to customers. Your understanding of the four levers is critical to doing this. So before we get started, I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on what the levers are and what they mean. Then we'll come back to the whiteboard and we'll talk about it in a little more detail. So stay tuned. When you have pressure to deliver a product to a customer, I've found it helpful to remember that there are only four basic dimensions or levers to work with. The first lever is scope, the amount of functionality that you and your team are expected to deliver. The second lever is time, the time frame in which you're expected to deliver that scope. Wow, 2014 was a long time ago. The third lever is resources, the amount of people, tools, and other assets you have at your disposal. Fourth lever is money. Money. Money is your budget for the resources. The point of all this is that these levers can be pushed and pulled around to ensure that you hit your project target. All right, now that you know what the levers are, let's talk about how we use them. The scope lever. If you decrease the scope that you have to deliver, you're obviously building less things in the same amount of time, okay? Building less equals you should have a higher confidence in delivery because the timeline didn't change, okay? So the risk to delivery is actually lowered if you lower the scope, okay? Similarly, if you increase the timeline, you should also have a higher confidence in delivery because you're building the same stuff, only you're taking longer. Maybe that means you're going to do a more thorough job at QA, or you'll take your time in the design phase. You have more time, which is a luxury, to do it. So the confidence here of a higher timeline should be higher. Risk to the business correspondingly lower. This is all well and good. This is fairly easy to understand. Now, when you get down here, this is where experienced leaders know that it's a little more complicated. If I'm going to add to my resource lever, add people to the project, it actually slows things down, at least for a certain period of time in the beginning. Why? Imagine you're going to add 5 people to your 20-person engineering team just to hit a certain objective. Well, those 5 people need to be onboarded. It doesn't happen for free, and it doesn't happen in 0 time. Onboarding means put them through the HR process, get them into their employee agreements and all the usual administrative effort that it takes to onboard someone, but also they have to come up to speed in the code. They have to understand the domain. Getting someone on board and productive in software is not time 0. It's actually non-trivial. And if the environment is really complicated, then that onboarding is going to take longer. So adding resources is a faulty assumption that many business people make simply because they're not used to the complexity that's in the technical side. Okay? Same thing with money. Increasing the money lever actually just enables you to get more resources, but the same dilemma applies. So if a project is on a very tight timeline or the complexity is really high, adding a bunch of budget doesn't necessarily solve anything because you're still constrained by your ability to uptake the resources. Now, experienced software people have been through this, but as a leader, as a technical leader, especially as a new technical leader, it can be difficult to wrap your head around it. But don't get intimidated or overwhelmed. Just remember that you only have these 4 levers. What you do with them is both an opportunity to be creative, and it's also a teachable moment where you can help be an educator not only to the technology side, because these decisions should involve the technology team at the table with the business, but it's also an opportunity to educate the business team because they don't necessarily know how to make the best decisions with these levers because they don't know how much technical depth is underneath the decisions that are being made. So it's key that you be an active participant in this process, and that requires you to understand how these levers can operate with each other.